Curious about what a criminal prosecutor actually is and what they actually do? Well, then you're in luck because that is exactly what we're diving into in today's video. Hey guys, if you're new to the channel, I'm Angela Vorpal of angelavorpal.com and the Law School Network Facebook group. And I created this video series to do a deep dive into different legal practice areas so that you could get a sense for what it actually looks like to practice these types of law and maybe what type of law you might want to practice one day. And speaking of the type of law you may want to practice one day, be sure to check out the What Type of Law Should I Practice quiz. It will give you an idea for where your natural abilities and strengths and interests lend themselves in the practice of law. So be sure to check that out. And once you do, come back and smash that like button so we can dive into today's video. So to walk us through what a criminal prosecutor is and does is Rachel Cole. Rachel is a former criminal prosecutor in the DC area, and she is now a life coach for lawyers, coaching around things like relationship, money making, entrepreneurship, and career development. Rachel, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so to go ahead and dive in, could you give us sort of the 10-second down and dirty version of what a criminal prosecutor is and does?
Sure. So I was a criminal prosecutor in the state of Maryland, both in Montgomery County, which is just outside Washington, D.C., and Baltimore City. So here, each line assistant state's attorney is what we were called. We worked for the state's attorney, was charged with bringing cases to court, either by way of a grand jury indictment or just charging them by information or having police officers make arrests. And then we settle those cases with unrepresented defendants or opposing counsel or take them to trial. That was our job.
Okay, and what would the slightly longer version of that be in terms of what you would normally do sort of week to week, some of the big projects you would work on and kind of how that flow works in that position?
Yeah, so the criminal prosecutor's end game objective basically across the board is to end up in felony cases, right? That was what we were all sort of like scrapping it out over when we were in district court doing misdemeanors. So again, with respect to Maryland, which is all I'm really familiar with in my experience, district court cases were misdemeanors handled before a judge in big volumes. We would do 40 to 60 cases on a docket every day. Possession of drugs, DUIs, minor theft cases, minor assault cases, anything that would end up classified as a misdemeanor in Maryland. But the big work, like the big guns in the state's attorney's office, ended up in felony prosecution teams. I was on the special victims unit. Literally, we were called SVU. And I handled felony domestic violence and sex offense cases. So my daily responsibilities were trial of those cases if one was ready to go to trial, which includes everything from opening statements, examination of witnesses, closing argument, and taking a verdict. Day to day, when I wasn't in trial, it was charging cases. So taking information from detectives or police officers to the grand jury, telling the grand jury what happened, sometimes having witnesses come in to talk to the grand jury. And then ultimately the grand jury would deliver an indictment. Then we would handle that indictment, investigate, meet with witnesses all the way down the line until they ended up ready for plea or ready to go to court for trial. And of course, a guilty plea is always offered in almost every case it was offered, where a defendant had an opportunity to admit to one count as opposed to all of the counts if they ended up convicted after trial. So it was our job to work those out too and take those before judges if people wanted to plead guilty ahead of trial.
Amazing. That was such a clear breakdown. I don't think I've ever heard it explained that well before. That was amazing. Yeah. And in terms of sort of the trial volume that you had when you were in misdemeanors versus felonies, about how many trials would you say that you had per month or per year? And was there any particular case that kind of stood out for you during your time as a prosecutor?
Yeah. So district court misdemeanor cases were definitely a volume practice. So when I say that, I mean, very rarely did I end up on a docket that had less than 35 cases. Almost always it was some like 60 to 70, even 80 at times. So, but when you think about those cases, they're really easy to prove. They're really minor. It's like someone has drugs in their pocket, someone got in a fight and there were witnesses, right? It's like one or two witness cases tops. So almost always they would plead out, meaning that the defendant would admit to some guilt if all the witnesses were present in court, ready to go to trial. Otherwise, they would be dismissed. Oftentimes, cases would get referred to drug treatment programs, things like that, community service for first-time offenders. So that was definitely a volume practice. But when I say trials, like even if I would try those cases in front of a judge, we would sometimes do 2 or 3 a day. So multiply that by 4 days in court per week times 50-ish weeks a year, right? If you take vacation or whatever, it's a lot of trials. Cut to felony cases, which are much more extensive and they seem simple, like a rape case, for example, can seem like, okay, how much do you really need to prove there? But there's a lot that goes into it, right? There's DNA, there's serology, there's nurses who do physical examinations on the victim. You have to think about all the witnesses that are required to piece those cases together. I would try those cases. Baltimore City is a very busy jurisdiction, as you can probably imagine. So I tried probably 40 cases a year, which is a lot for felonies. And yeah, one that really stands out to me is and it was pretty standard in terms of the felony domestic violence seriousness of certain cases, was a husband and wife in their 60s, got in a big argument. Alcohol was involved. Husband had a slug shotgun. I'm not like a gun person, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. Single load, like big shot rifle, right? Takes the rifle, puts it up to his wife's face, like right on her cheek, and is telling her to do something, be quiet, stop yelling at him, something to that effect. She pushes the rifle off of her own cheek, thank goodness, and it fires into the wall a size bigger than my arms could make in terms of the hole in the wall. So I had the detectives take true to scale photographs of that hole, bring them to court. She testified beautifully. He testified not so well. It ended up in a full verdict sheet conviction on all accounts up to attempted murder. And he went to jail, which felt like the right thing when you hold a rifle to your wife's face.
Oh my God, that's so incredible. I can't imagine the work that went into that and the emotion that went into that. And one of the questions that I like to ask a lot is, what is sort of the most fun part of the job and the worst part of the job? And I can imagine as a prosecutor, there's probably very intense answers to both.
Yeah. So the fun part of the job is if you're someone like me, and I am an introvert, but I'm an extroverted introvert. And I think I was just saying this to somebody today, people think of introverts as shy. It's actually just that introverts gather their energy from being alone, whereas extroverts gather their energy from being with other people. Which made public speaking and trial work actually easy for me because it's not a lot of engagement with other people. They're just sitting there and you're not relying on anybody else but yourself and your witnesses from time to time, which are a one-on-one conversation. So I loved the performance part of it. I was a double major political science and theater in college. I danced all growing up. So I loved the animation and performative qualities of trial work. I loved the intensity. I was always really interested in police work and criminal work. And at the same time, I did not want to be a police officer. So I loved that I could feel close to the criminal justice system, even if I wasn't actually boots on the ground in it. Although often when I was in the SVU section, we would go to crime scenes and meet with detectives as things were unfolding. So I got to feel very close to that. Obviously, when you're trying a rape case and you believe you're a victim, you're trying a domestic violence case and you believe you're a victim. By the way, we had a lot of discretion in the cases that we charged. If I didn't feel good about a case, I did not charge it. So I believed in all of my cases, and it feels as good as you think it would to prosecute and win and see somebody actually have justice served and leave your victim feeling like nothing can erase what happened to them, but at least they feel like somebody is on their side and that their peers and their community is on their side. So that's a really amazing part of being a prosecutor. It was why I wanted to do it so much. The downsides are what you would imagine as well, right? When you're really, you have to be emotionally invested in your case to convey the passion that you want the jury to feel. And I think just to do the work and put in the hours, it's a time-consuming job. You don't get paid the big bucks that you do in big law. So you're doing it because you believe in it. And the downside to really doing something that you believe in and loving it is that when it doesn't go the way you think it should, it can be really devastating. And I've lost cases I thought I should have won. It happens to the best prosecutors. Juries are unreliable and unpredictable, to say the least. And so when that happens, it can be really heartbreaking. But nothing you can't handle.
Oh my gosh, fantastic. And I wanted to ask if you're open to it about how much did you work, sort of what would a normal work day or normal work week look like? And if you'd be open to sharing it, a range of how much a criminal prosecutor can expect to make right out of law school.
Yeah. It is a big job. And again, it's like you care about it. That's why you're doing it. And so you want to do it well and you want to get it right. And you want to be diligent in the cases that you're handling. And it's that moment, right? When you're like, I remember being, God, I clerked for a year after law school. And then I got my first job as a prosecutor. So I was 25 and you're like, I'm in charge. Like what? So it's like this humbling moment where you're like, oh shit, I better not screw this up. So yeah, like you put in the hours because you care, but I would say like early on, it was a much bigger time commitment than it became because I was learning. I would say definitely 12-ish hour work days and some weekend days, to be totally honest, when I first started. And really that continued when I first started in felony too, because you're again, sort of like going from being a senior to being a freshman and it's all new. So yeah, it's a big job. I think it can end up being, and certainly there is no expectation culturally that it be a all day, every day, and on the weekends commitment. And it can be a 9 to 5, and it can truly be a job where, you put your work in and then you leave for the day and then you're checked out. Like that is the beauty of it. You don't work for your victims. You don't work for the police officers. They're not your clients. So your client is the state or jurisdiction that you're working for. And the people of Maryland couldn't call me at all hours of the day and night. Right. So the hours really, I think, compress and expand when you're learning and growing. And then when you get more of like veteran status, they become less demanding. As far as the salary, again, this is for Maryland. It is not a job you take for the money. I'll just be honest with you. When I started out in Montgomery County, which is a very affluent jurisdiction outside of DC, if you're not familiar, it was actually a position that had been divided into 2 positions. So my starting salary in 2008 was $40,000 a year, and it had no benefits, no retirement, no health insurance, nothing. Eventually, I think after a year, they had enough resources to make both of those positions full-time. And again, remember when we're talking about 2008, it was a tough time economically. They then made it into a full-time position. I was working full-time even before it was, of course, but it became a 52-ish a year salary with benefits, with, I think it was a pension at the time, whatever, all the things that come with it, health insurance. And then when I left Baltimore City at my sort of like most senior status, I want to say it was like 78-ish, which is a pretty good salary in Baltimore City, which is actually a more affordable jurisdiction than Montgomery County. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And one of the other questions I'd love to ask is, was there anything you did in law school or right after law school that sort of got you interested in becoming a criminal prosecutor or actually led to the job that you were able to get?
Yeah. So in law school, I took federal criminal prosecution or federal criminal something. It was taught by a DOJ attorney and a federal defense attorney. And that was amazing. Any classes that you can take in law school, your second and third year, that are taught by actual practitioners, I would say do it. And if it's what you're interested in, all the better. But like, I would always try and find, I got this tip early on in law school, the classes that were taught by people that were full-time employed doing the work they were teaching, so much better. I also will give a shout out to Barbara Bergman, who was my evidence professor. Oh my God, so long ago, 2005 or 6. She was a visiting professor at Catholic University where I went to law school, and she represented Timothy McVeigh in the Oklahoma City bombing case. And she was a phenomenal person to learn from. And the funny story there is like, we were all bummed out that we couldn't get into this one like big shot professor's evidence course. And I was like, screw it, I'm just going to take the visiting professor, whatever. Best decision I ever made, totally by accident. And so those 2 classes, I would say, really changed my feelings about like, oh, this whole litigation thing can be really fun. Then after law school, I took a trial practice class too. I would definitely recommend doing that. That's how I met the judge that I ended up clerking for. he was a visiting professor for the actual professor and judge who ran the course. And he gave me feedback that I valued so highly in that one class that he visited, where he pointed out that after every question I asked on direct examination, I said, okay. And he's like, it's kind of distracting. It's like, I have to work for you. This is amazing. So I did. And he was in a criminal rotation while I was working for him after I graduated law school. And so seeing the prosecution and the defense work involved in those cases firsthand as a judge's law clerk was really, really valuable to me. And of course, it helped me build a reputation with those lawyers. So when I applied, they were all like pulling for me. But yeah, I mean, I would say even if you don't have as many of those opportunities in the way that they worked out for me, just genuine interest and passion about the work is like really easily conveyed to anybody that's making hiring decisions.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. And the last question I love to ask is, if you had to rate this practice area on a scale of 1 to 10 to someone who's considering becoming a criminal prosecutor, what would you rate it?
Like a 17. It's like, if you're interested in criminal law, I don't know why you would do anything else, because you really do get that experience of just studying the facts of your cases, meeting with witnesses, figuring out how they come across. I mean, it's human understanding, it's human genius, it's also legal genius and performance genius. It's like all these different parts that come together that really show you, you know, what's out there and what's available in the practice of law. And so if that's the passion point for you, I can't think of any other place where you could get as much experience. Even like I have friends who work for the DOJ. I live in DC, and you know, they just don't get into court as often as those of us that worked on the state level. So Maryland was like a county by county state's attorney's office is what it was called, even though it was really like the counties divided it up. But you can also find other jurisdictions where it's on a state level. Maryland does some state cases through the Attorney General's office, depending on how much it impacts multiple counties at a time. So whatever operation exists in your state, I would just say, if you're interested in criminal work, doing it on a state or county level is really the best way to get the most experience.
That's so incredible. Rachel, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. And if people want to reach out to you and learn more about what you're doing now, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way to find you?
So I'm now not practicing law anymore. Although after this, I'm like, why am I not practicing law? This is the best. So now I'm a full-time life coach, and I mostly coach lawyers and other life coaches on relationships, professional decisions, money making, business development, all the things. So I can be found at Rachel Cole Coaching. My last name is spelled COLL. RachelColeCoaching.com. You can also check me out on LinkedIn at Rachel Cole, RachelColl, or on Instagram at Rachel Elizabeth Cole.
Big thanks to Rachel for walking us through what a criminal prosecutor is and what they do. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. And of course, be sure to reach out to her. All of her links will be in the description as well. All right, guys, I hope that video was helpful. I hope you learned a lot, and I will see you in the next one.